It's Sports Time with Chris. I have got quite the jam-packed episode for you today. I'll be talking about all sorts of things from the 49ers 53-man roster to the practice squad to Jauan Jennings' contract dispute that's still ongoing. Plus, this week the 49ers unveiled their Rivalries uniforms. My thoughts on it, spoiler alert, they're pretty sick. So yeah, we've got a lot to cover today. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. The 49ers initial 53-man roster has been released. That doesn't include the players that were waived and released by the 49ers. So we're going to start by talking about some of those guys and I'm not going to talk about all of them, just kind of the ones that personally I think were noteworthy, or they were either surprises or I have additional thoughts on them. Starting with really all the receivers is interesting. Robbie Chosen, that one was a surprise. He did really well in the preseason. It seemed like he was more than a serviceable receiver. So that's a guy that I can see them target for the practice squad. Russell Gage Jr., of course, was also another surprise. He's a vet. He's been in the league for a long time, so maybe they're trying to get him on the practice squad. Who knows? But out of all the receivers, those two are definitely the most surprising to me. Isaiah Hodgins is a guy that, potentially could be practice squadded. I think they have 16 practice squad spots. So, they'll probably have a few receivers there. We'll see if one of these four guys makes it. And then Malik Turner as well. He had a few plays in the preseason, but nothing really stood out to me. Michael Dunn, offensive lineman. Jonathan Garvin, defensive lineman Travis Gibson, who flashed a few times, but nothing too noteworthy there. Bruce Hector, another defensive lineman. Fabian Moreau, Chaz Surratt, and of course, fan favorite, Jeff Wilson Jr. Look, Jeff Wilson Jr. I think this is definitely the right move for the 49ers. Maybe they'll get him on the practice squad, but he's a bit older. I like them going in the direction of youth, especially with the addition of Brian Robinson. So, that running back room is looking solid. And we still haven't seen Jordan James. He had the unfortunate broken thumb that he's been dealing with, so hopefully he'll be back soon and contribute to this team a little bit. And of course, the big news that everyone is talking about, the 49ers released their punter, Thomas Morstead. And I think there are a couple of reasons for this, potentially. The first one, it's not going to be very popular. The 49ers realized they spent a third-round pick on Jake Moody. And Jake Moody should be able to handle the punts as well. So watch out for Jake Moody handling the punts and the kicking duties. No, obviously nobody wants that. I think more realistically, the 49ers are probably going to go for it on fourth down every time, which is great. I love to see Kyle Shanahan be a little bit more aggressive, so let's do it. I'm excited for it. No, but in all seriousness, I think this is just so they can play some roster gymnastics and eventually bring them back after they figure it all out. So yeah, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, Jake Moody will only be handling the field goals. Guys that were waived, Junior Bergen, I thought he was on the outside looking in, especially when they traded for Sky Moore. And then he had the unfortunate punt drop in the preseason game against Los Angeles. So too bad for him. Stone Blanton, I really liked him. I think he may have made the team. Either him or Jalen Graham would have made the team if it wasn't for all these injuries that they've been dealing with. Defensive lineman William Bradley King, defensive back Derek Canteen, cornerback Dallas Flowers. Now, Dallas Flowers, for some people, was a surprise. I don't know. I've always seen him more as just a special teams guy. Didn't really stand out to me in the preseason, honestly. And I think he'll be a solid depth piece if they can get him on the practice squad. But besides that, not too sad about that. But Jalen Mahoney is a guy that I think, who I really like. With the rumors that Jair Brown is on the trade block, if they do make that move, I'm really hoping that they can keep Jalen Mahoney on the practice squad and re-sign him to the roster at a later time, because I really liked what I saw from him this year, and I think a little bit last year as well, if I remember correctly. So hopefully he doesn't get signed or picked up and comes back to the practice squad, but we'll see about that. I think, as surprising as this may sound, this safety room is actually looking pretty solid, but I'll get into that later when I talk about the roster. I'll be going through the roster and just giving my thoughts on each position. So yeah, we'll get into the safeties a little bit later. Drake Nugent, Tariq Owens, it's potentially another guy that may not be picked up by another team and could sneak his way into the practice squad. He had the touchdown in the game on Saturday, so that was really cool to see, but yeah, just hasn't stood out too much for me, honestly. A guy that has stood out, who's a little bit of a surprise, is Sebastian Valdez. Now, the 49ers have a lot of defensive linemen. The issue is that a lot of them have been injured. So this is unfortunately one of those guys that may be an unfortunate loss for the 49ers. I feel like he stood out enough that other teams will want to snatch him up. So that's too bad. Braden Willis, no surprise there. And Nick Zakelj, no surprise there either. 49ers picked 10 offensive linemen, I believe. And Nick Zakelj was one of the weaker ones. And here we are a day later. We know who the 49ers have signed to their practice squad. And I waited a day. I initially was thinking about doing a reaction to the 53-man roster that was announced yesterday. But I figured I'd wait until today when we know who is joining the practice squad, any players they signed off of any players they signed from the waivers, etc. So yeah, today that's what we're going to do. We're going to go over the initial 53-man roster. There have been a few moves that have been made, and we're going to talk about those things. I'm going to try to stay as updated as I can, but no promises, because tonight, who knows what's going to happen tonight, but I've got my fantasy draft going over to my parents' house where my dad and brother will be joining and drafting alongside me. I may have accidentally shared some of my strategy with my dad, but we'll see how that goes. It's always a fun time. And the somewhat big signing for the 49ers today was wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He was released by Seattle and now goes back to a Shanahan-style offense. He was with the Packers under Matt LaFleur, where, of course, they run a very similar offense. So I think that's part of the reason why they brought him in specifically. And while he is not a game-changing receiver, in my opinion, he has made some good plays in the past. 49ers fans are very familiar with him, having seen him in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. So yeah, we know what he brings to the table. Not a game-changer, but a solid receiver, and really kind of a midline guy, perfect to get over the hump. The Niners as of yesterday only had 2 healthy wide receivers on the roster, so really any receiver signings are going to be a boost, and I like this move, but also my standards are pretty low right now where I will accept any receiver the 49ers sign, basically. And besides that, the 49ers signed Jordan Jefferson off waivers from Jacksonville. In the corresponding move, they waived Evan Anderson. I haven't seen a corresponding move to the addition of MVS, so I'll be interested to see what happens there. Okay, so with that, we are going to talk about the 49ers 53-man roster. We're going to go position by position. I'm just going to give a brief thought on each position and where I think they can use some help and where I think they're the strongest. So let's get into it. Starting with the quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones. Honestly, one of the best 1-2 quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion. Brock Purdy, I think this year is going to really show who he is as a quarterback. He was interviewed recently and he talked about how last season, essentially all he thought about was getting back to the Super Bowl. All these guys are injured. He has to make all these plays and kind of make up for it. Essentially, he was doing way too much. And he acknowledged that. And I think this year it's going to be more of a focus, hopefully, on just getting back to being a quarterback, being a distributor, not doing too much, although he's not quite on Mahomes' level with extending plays and making awesome plays off of brokenness. I don't know why I can't think of the terms right now, but yeah, solid. And if he goes down, I think Mac Jones is a solid guy to have behind him. Running backs / fullbacks, McCaffrey, Garendo, Brian Robinson, Jordan James, Kyle Juszczyk. I still question the 49ers decision to keep a fullback on the roster, especially with how many injuries they've dealt with this year in general, but not at the receiver position especially. Besides that, I think they have a solid running back room. McCaffrey and Robinson will be a nice 1-2 punch, and I think the key with that is that Shanahan actually uses Robinson occasionally. I know I've heard quite a few people, they believe that the Niners will run a lot of 2 running back sets this year, so not necessarily fullback, 2 actual running backs, and have McCaffrey run a lot of routes because he is an excellent route runner. And Garendo I think is solid, although he's been getting bagged on quite a bit. And Jordan James we have yet to see. But as an Oregon fan, I'm excited to see him, and I think he'll be good. I don't think we have to worry about Jordan James, honestly. Receivers: Jennings, Pearsall, Watkins, Sky Moore, Cowing. Currently, only 2 of those guys are healthy. Brandon Ayuk, of course, is on PUP. Demarcus Robinson suspended. And so, 2 healthy receivers. And of course, I just talked about the addition of MVS. So 3 healthy receivers, which is fantastic. The thing is, this room looks solid with their top 4 guys, really. With Ayuk, Robinson, Jennings, and Pearsall. I feel really good about that. But with pretty much all those guys out, Pearsall, Sky Moore, and MVS as the starting receivers is just wild. I have no idea what week 1 is going to look like. I mean, we still have a ways to go, so things are still going to happen. But once they're healthy, I think this is a really, really good receiving core. But until then, this is kind of scary. And Brock may have to do more than he really can. Tight ends: Kittle, Farrell, Tonjes. I think this is a pretty good tight end room. I mean, George Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL. Farrell, he did okay in preseason. Wasn't super impressed with him. Tonjes as well, just didn't really show up. So I think it's a decent tight end room. We'll have to see how Farrell does. He was brought in to be more of this blocking tight end, paid quite a bit of money to do it. So hopefully he can step in, especially in the first couple of weeks when they're short on receivers. They might be running a lot of 2 running back, 2 tight end sets. I mean, I guess we'll see. But he may have to step in and be more of a blocking tight end and help Kittle so that he can go out and catch passes. Because, they're just really short on receivers. So Kittle, I've already been saying this for years. Kittle should be the main focus of this offense. Not CMC, not Pearsall, but Kittle. So offensive line, it's interesting. The Niners kept 10 offensive linemen. Trent, Brendel, Pooney, Barch, Kivitz, Burford, Colby, Pleasance, Hennessy, and Drew Moss. Really interesting that they're going with 10. I think this is I like this because it feels like they're starting to focus a little bit more on the trenches. And while I don't believe they actively improved the trenches this year, hopefully there's some natural improvement from some of these guys having been in the system multiple years and just progressing. But we'll have to see there. And as long as Trent Williams can stay healthy, this offensive line is going to be, mid-tier, I think. Serviceable, nothing special. Again, defensive line, 11 guys. Really, to me, this signals a shift in the focus for the trenches for the 49ers, which is absolutely what you have to do. We saw how that worked for the Eagles last year, and while I don't know how many teams can replicate what the Eagles did, I think that's kind of the blueprint. I feel like that's kind of the lost part of the NFL is the trenches. Bosa, Williams, Huff, Collins, CJ West, Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, Okwanu, Beal, Yetur Gross-Matos, and of course, the signing that I talked about earlier. Evan Anderson is no longer there. I think this defensive line, if healthy, can be really, really strong. Now, that is the issue, is staying healthy. If this defensive line can't stay healthy and they're dealing with a bunch of injuries, then things might get a little bit rough here. Who knows what's going on with Bosa? Michael is apparently supposed to be back. Alfred Collins, it seems like he needs a little bit of help, like he's still developing. He's more of a guy that may not be, although he's a freak of a human being in terms of how he's built. It seems like he's a little bit raw, and hopefully I can get him some good developmental. They can develop him quite a bit this year, but I'm not expecting too much out of him, honestly. But these other guys, man, CJ West has looked promising. Kalia Davis has looked promising. We saw what Sam Akwana can do last year a bit. Robert Beal, of course, we haven't seen him reach his full potential, and I think once we do, hopefully he can be a guy. And Yetur Gross-Matos was a nice surprise. He had been dealing with some injuries, and looks like that might be settled by week 1, which is great. But yeah, with Robert Saleh back in the building, I expect a lot of creativity from this defense, and they have a lot of good guys who can create some very unique defensive fronts and just not be super vanilla. Of course, there's always the NASCAR package, which the first time we see that I think is going to be epic. Bosa, Williams, Huff, who knows what other guy can go in there, and maybe Yetur Gross-Matos. I guess we'll see, but I really like they have guys in there that can play both outside and inside. I think that's a good strength. D-line is good. The linebackers, man, the 49ers are really good at picking and developing linebackers. Fred Warner, D. Winters, Nick Martin, Luke Gifford, Tatum Bethune. Solid room there, honestly. Of course, hopefully no injuries happen, but sometimes guys miss a couple of series or a game or two. It's bound to happen in the NFL. I feel really good about all these guys, honestly. I feel like this is one of the strengths of this defense. And honestly, with Robert Saleh back in the building, I'm going to go back to him quite a bit here. This middle of the defense might be the strongest compared to the defensive line and the corners, defense backs. Jeez, why am I struggling so much? And while we're on it, defensive backs, Lenore, Saran Neal, Green, Stout, Darrell Luter, Chase Lucas. I feel really, really strong about the 4 guys who I think are the top choices here. Lenore, Green, and Stout. Although we haven't seen Stout, I've heard really good things about him. Behind him is Chase Lucas. I feel solid about those 4 guys. Darrell Luter. So I didn't get to watch the whole game against Los Angeles, but the few plays I saw with Luter, I was not really impressed, and I haven't had a chance to go back and watch that game at all. When I looked online, people were saying that Luter had really secured his spot on the roster, but just based on the few plays I watched, I didn't feel that way. So hopefully he did actually have a good, solid last game. That's why he's on the roster. And then Saran Neal, I think he did pretty well in preseason. This might be more of what I like about him is he's going to contribute on special teams. And really, a lot of the players on this roster are going to have to do that this year simply because they are so low on depth. Going to safeties, Jason Pinnock, Marquise Siegel, Jair Brown, Richie Grant. Of course, Malik Mustafa is on PUP. I feel really good about any combination of those guys. Maybe Richie Grant is a little bit on the weaker side, but Pinnock and Siegel starting the year, I think, would be pretty solid. I still have hope for Jair Brown. There have been rumors that he's going to be traded or that he's on the trade block, so we'll see. But I want to hold out hope for Jair. I really liked him his rookie year. I know last year wasn't what anyone wanted, so we'll have to see. But I do like really all the guys in the safety room. Specialists, Jake Moody and John Weeks. Honestly, don't have a lot to say about that. Brant Boyer, I really hope, and I've said this many times, I hope he can come in and really improve and make special teams actually, special teams does matter, but to Kyle Shanahan, it's been more about special teams just not messing things up. So I'm hoping Brant Boyer can elevate that. So rather than special teams playing mistake-free and not messing things up, they're making a bigger difference than in years past. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how long Jake Moody lasts. Seems like, I don't know. I know fans have turned on him, but Shanahan seems to be on his side still. Practice squad. The Niners have signed 13 players to the practice squad, and I'm just going to list them in order here. Eli Apple, Junior Bergen, William Bradley King, Derek Canteen, Robbie Chosen, Travis Gibson, Jalen Graham, Drake Nugent, Curtis Robinson, Malik Turner, Sebastian Valdez, Brayden Willis, and Nick Zakelj. So, Eli Apple, not sure why he's on the practice squad, honestly, but better on the practice squad than the active roster. Junior Bergen is, he might have a shot at redemption, but we'll see. Robbie Chosen is interesting that he's just on the practice squad. I thought he did really well in the preseason, well enough that he could, in my opinion, be on the active roster, but who knows what kind of gymnastics they're trying to play, having only 3 healthy receivers at the moment, but I'm glad they were able to get him back. Travis Gibson, defensive lineman, he flashed a little bit for me. I feel like he does have some things to improve on, but I liked what I saw from him, and I'm hoping that he could provide a nice depth piece for the defensive line. Jalen Graham, linebacker, again, another linebacker that him and Curtis Robinson. I think Curtis Robinson could have made the active roster if it wasn't for all the injuries that have been going on, but either one of those guys I feel really good about if they have to be elevated. And Sebastian Valdez, another guy that kind of had some really good moments in the preseason. A little surprised that he got through waivers, but happy to see him back on the Niners. And again, more solid defensive line depth. Breaking news, Thomas Morstead re-signed by the 49ers. To make room for him, the Niners placed Jacob Cowing on the injured reserve list. That's a little too bad. I'm just sad. Not really sad. I really want to see what Jacob Cowing can be. I feel like he had moments last year, but we all know the Shanahan offense is so complicated and it's hard for rookies to pick it up. So even with all the injuries last year, he couldn't get that much playing time. And he's been dealing with injuries this year. I don't know if we're going to see him back this season, which is unfortunate. I feel like he really did have moments. And I don't know. I saw him as a difference maker when the Niners drafted him. And that has been the case so far. Hopefully we can't see him this season. I mean, that would be cool. But if not, then that's quite unfortunate. But at least we know the 49ers are set when they need to punt. In other news, the 49ers unveiled their new Rivalries uniforms yesterday. And man, these things are sweet. I absolutely enjoy them. I know there are some fans that aren't feeling them, but for me, these things are just, they knocked it out of the park. The black. I mean, everyone's going all black or all white nowadays. In this case, I think it really works for the 49ers because unlike the previous Color Rush uniforms, this one incorporates gold. And so when you look at them, it's still the red and gold. And the red and gold really pops, especially with the material they used for the numbers. So, when the light hits it, they reflect and they just pop. They look so, so good. Love the gold on the helmet. We'll have to see if they can go. I don't know I think NFL teams are required to have white chin straps. So that's a little bit unfortunate. I wish they could go black there, but man, these things are sweet. The saloon style font for the numbers is really unique and it screams 49ers to me. So it's, while the black isn't necessarily a primary color, I feel like the red and gold is what really, those are the two primary colors for the 49ers. At least that's what I think of. And that's what pops on these uniforms. I mean, the saloon font really is so, so cool. A couple seasons ago, they went back to the saloon font for their 49ers text logo. I know there's a specific word for that, but I can't think of it right now. So having those on the uniforms are just so, so clean. I saw a concept. So someone saw these uniforms a while ago and tried to recreate them. When I saw that concept, I was not impressed. But these ones, when you actually see the photos of the actual product, these things are awesome. They've got the faithful stitched on the front. Just they knocked it out of the park. It's too bad Well, that's the thing is the 49ers have so many good uniforms. I mean, their home and away jerseys are just so clean. One of the classic looks in the NFL. That's the thing is they still have a classic look, but they still look like they belong in the league. It's not an outdated look per se. And then their throwbacks are just chef's kiss. Love their throwback uniforms. And this one, I love that it's a modernized style, but they include elements from the past, like the saloon font, the shading that's gold is like the old school shading that they've done. So it still feels like the 49ers, still feels modern and classic at the same time. So I love it. I think they absolutely killed it. And I can't remember if I already said this, but they also received input from the players when creating these uniforms, which is the players want to look good. I feel like players have a good sense of what looks good, and they know what the fans want to see as well. Even Diamador Lenore, who went to Oregon, who has the best uniforms in college football, said that these ones might be the best that he's ever had. So yeah, really excited to see these in week 18 against the Seahawks. I'm hoping the 49ers can have a playoff spot clinched by then. But if not, if they're fighting for a spot, hopefully this game will be elevated to primetime so we can see these in primetime, because that would be pretty sweet. But yeah, they're just wearing it one time. So it's cool. It gives fans a reason to go to the last game, whether it's, whether they're in the playoffs or not. They get to see these uniforms, and also for the fans that aren't the biggest on these ones, they only have to see it one time. So that's that. Compared to some of the other rivalries uniforms, I mean, the Niners absolutely killed it. I really don't know how I feel about the Seahawks. I mean, they look fine. They're nothing special. They might look really cool under the lights, but I feel like maybe they didn't do the best job with the photography for those. So it's kind of making it hard to tell. The Cardinals, I like what they were going for, but I saw a tweet saying that their uniforms look like tortillas, and once you see that, you can't unsee it. And yeah, I'm seeing that right now. So the Rams, I mean, the Rams just felt a little lazy. It just looks like they made their primary uniform black. So a little bit boring for the Rams. I feel like they could have gotten a little bit more creative, but it is what it is. I'm not a Rams fan. AFC East is the other one that participated. I feel like the Patriots uniforms are really unique. They look classic. Yeah, they look classic and modern. The color is very different, and the numbers that they have, it's got a little bit of a throwback to the old school Patriots uniforms, which is cool. I kind of like them. It's different. Not better than the Rams for sure, and the Cardinals. The Jets, they went with the all black silver trim. I think it's really unique. The thing is, no, it doesn't have the green that you expect when it comes to the New York Jets, but it does have, they're the Jets, and there are lots of Jets that are black. They've got the B-2 bombers that are black. So I think that's a cool way for them to introduce the all black, and they've got, the details like the the steel on the side of the sleeves, on the actual, the Jet logo, and on the stripe on the helmet. Yeah, I think those ones are really cool. The way better blackout concept than the Rams, that's for sure. Okay, what other ones? Oh, the Dolphins. Again, Dolphins just going with the blackout uniform. It's the trend nowadays. I don't know what else they could have gone to. Maybe an all orange uniform. Do they still do those? I do miss seeing the Dolphins in that red and orange uniform. So yeah, I mean, they're cool. The blue really pops. So if they end up being in a primetime game, those will look good, but I'm not sure if we're going to see that. And then of course, the Bills with their whiteouts. I feel like they look pretty, I don't know. Fans seem to think that this is the best out of all the rivalries uniforms, and I don't love them. I feel like they look a lot like those Vikings whiteout uniforms that came out a year or two ago. I don't know, again, the trend, you're either going blackout or whiteout. I feel like they could have put a little bit more thought into it, in my opinion, but it's whatever. They do look really clean. I'll give them that. But to me, they just look so similar to those Vikings whiteout uniforms that we saw recently. Okay, well, that's enough uniform talk. This episode has gone on long enough, so I'm going to start wrapping it up here. 49ers news, the last of the news this week that I have, at least. Well, actually, there are two items. The first one is they re-signed Russell Gage, which was good. I was hoping they would bring in another receiver. Apparently, they have also Kendrick Bourne potentially could be making a return. He is apparently scheduled to meet with the 49ers, so really interesting. Really interesting. 49ers getting a little bit desperate at receiver right now, which is, yeah, that's lots of fun. The corresponding move was they released Richie Grant. He was a safety. Who knows? Maybe they'll try to bring him back on the practice squad. I really liked what I saw from him. I've stated this before. I think the safety room is solid. Maybe this means they're not finding any trade partners for Jair Brown. So I guess we'll see how that all works out. And the final item, apparently Jauan Jennings is really shooting for the stars for this contract. Apparently he wants 20 million plus a year, and he wants to be in the top 20 or so of receivers in terms of average pay per year, which is, wow, that's a tall ask. I don't know. Did Shanahan go to him and be like, hey, you're the guy until Ayuk is back, or, you're the number one? Like, was he told his role was going to be expanding on the team? He had some really good games last season, but besides that, he had a few flashes in the pan. I love Jauan Jennings, but I don't see him as a number one guy. Maybe he can be. Maybe he knows that he can be that. And I love when players believe they can be a number one and be a top dog. 20 million a year is pretty crazy to pay Jauan Jennings, in my opinion. The rumors before was that he wanted a deal like Cooper Kupp, which is in the 15 million a year range. And I just don't see that. I was like, you know what? Give Jauan Jennings a little bit of a pay raise. He's absolutely earned that. But 20 million a year plus that's just a little bit crazy in my opinion. I love Jauan Jennings, but he's really shooting for the stars there. I don't think the Niners should do that. They should, I don't know, if this is going to come to an impasse, maybe consider trading him, which is really unfortunate. I don't want to see that happen. Rather see him play out this season and then leave in free agency. But we'll have to see how this Jauan Jennings saga plays out. Just when we thought we were free of drama this year, this happens, and yeah, it's nuts. Okay, on the topic of nuts, one more thing that happened yesterday that was pretty crazy. Of course, shook up the NFL world. Micah Parsons was traded to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers received Parsons, who gave him a 4-year, $188 million contract, which is $47 million a year annually. The Cowboys receive Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. This is going to sound crazy. This might be my hot take on this trade. The Cowboys won this trade. Parsons is a heck of a football player. He is absolutely, he's a contender to be Defensive Player of the Year. 100%. With that being said, you can't pay a quarterback money at $47 million a year. That is just absolutely crazy that the Packers did that. Cowboys receiving 2 first-round picks. Okay, that might be a little light, but they did receive a Pro Bowler in Kenny Clark. So while, Micah Parsons is a game changer, I don't think this is the worst move by the Cowboys. I mean, the Packers get a heck of a football player, sure. $47 million a year. Maybe they think this is their year. And that was a missing piece. Who knows? But I don't think this is I almost thought this was a lose-lose situation, but I feel like the Cowboys may have slightly gotten out on top on this one. And the Packers have temporarily as well, till they can't sign anyone else because they've paid their quarterback and a quarterback money. So really interesting to see how that shakes up. Anyway, that's enough for today. This episode is much longer than I was anticipating it being. So yeah, that's going to do it. Football season is right around the corner. The weather is starting to cool down. The winds are shifting. Fall is here. The best time of the year.
Almost. Not quite. Not quite fall. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But man, I'm excited. Thanks again for tuning in today. That's going to do it for today's episode. I appreciate every single one of you that takes the time to listen to me talk about football. I try to do my best. I feel like sometimes I'm okay at it. So if you think so as well, please like the video, follow me, subscribe, do all the things. Really helps me out. And until next time, this has been Sports Time with Chris.